Welcome to 418. Astrology Lesson 1, Salve et Coagula. What is astrology? Astro means stars and logi means writing. This is all Greek. So if you put them together, you see that astrology means writing of the stars, or perhaps language of the stars. Astrology is indeed a language through which the stars, or, if you like, the whole universe, speaks to us. If having a dialogue with the universe sounds like the kind of thing you'd be interested in, then you've come to the right place. The first thing to understand is that the language of astrology does not use words. This is because words are too limiting and too limited. Instead of words, astrology uses what I call symbols. These symbols, and I'll explain more about what they are, always accurately reflect the world of our experience. But the regular English or Chinese or Swahili words that we translate the symbols into may not always be accurate, which is one of the potential ways that astrology can quote unquote fail you. Astrology fails when we don't understand the full holistic meaning of the symbols and how they can manifest in our lives. So now I had better explain what the symbols are. By symbol, I mean more or less the same thing that psychologist Carl Jung meant by his term archetype. Jung saw the archetypes as an instinctual part of our psyche. The idea is that we all carry within us certain myths, and these myths are pre-installed into our psyches somehow, because the same myths, the same characters, the same archetypes and symbols reappear again and again in our lives and across human cultures around the world. These symbols are part of us. If you do not understand what I mean yet, hang in there, because once you meet them, you'll recognize them. There are roughly 22 or so major symbols we all have downloaded into this operating system we call a brain, or psyche, when we are born, and at least certainly by the time we are raised by other humans. These 22 symbols are all found in the tarot deck. These 22 symbols make up what we call the major arcana in the tarot deck. You might be saying to yourself, I thought we were learning astrology. Why are we talking about tarot when we're here to learn something completely different and just as complicated? Well, astrology and tarot are related. The way I usually explain it is this. If astrology is baseball, tarot is baseball cards. Tarot teaches us the language of astrology, assuming we have the eyes to see it. If you just pick up a tarot deck, mind you, you would not be able to see it. The esoteric secrets of the world are hidden in a tarot deck. That's why they refer to the parts of the tarot deck as the major and minor arcana. Arcana means secrets. They're talking about the secrets hidden in the tarot. And what is all the secrecy about? The esoteric secrets of the world are basically those symbols represented by the 22 major arcana cards, what they mean, and how to use them. This is what you'll learn here, and then some. Thus, in the practice of learning astrology, it is handy to have a tarot deck to look at or refer to. Like I said earlier, if astrology is baseball, the tarot is baseball cards. For an absolute beginner, I recommend getting either the Rider-Waite Tarot, or some deck with the words Rider or Waite in the name, or the Tote Tarot, which was created by Aleister Crowley, the greatest magician of the 19th and 20th centuries. Perhaps you will be the greatest magician of the 21st century. The Rider-Waite and the Tote deck were both created by people who understood the secrets hidden in the tarot, so their decks are the most accurate to look at. Each of the 22 major arcana, or unfortunately, trump cards, represents one of these symbols or archetypes that I'm talking about. These symbols are all related to astrology. The 22 cards all represent either a planet, a zodiac sign, or, sometimes, a concept crucial to understanding the workings of astrology. The minor arcana contains the secrets of the elements and the numbers, which we'll also be learning about in our quest to understand astrology. The tarot is astrology in the form of a deck of cards. So before we get into these symbols and what they mean, it's important to step back for a moment and realize what we are doing with them. You could learn about all of these symbols, and in fact, when we do learn them, many of them will seem familiar because they're woven into not just our culture, but our experience of reality itself. One exercise you should always be doing is trying to recognize these symbols when they appear both in the outer world, like what you see in your life every day, the news, etc., or your inner world. The more you are able to recognize the symbols, the more you are able to ask yourself, why this symbol? Why me? Why now? Questions like that will make you receptive to what these symbols are trying to teach you. and they are always trying to teach you something. It is also important to know that these symbols are also the gods. I mean the gods of old time, not the angry white guy in the sky that many of us have many mixed feelings about. Thus, if you are in constant communication with these symbols, you are unifying yourself with God. This is known to be a dangerous process if taken on before you're ready, which is why Aleister Crowley called it the oath of the abyss. It sounds dangerous because it can be. Learning astrology will not endanger you. It will tell you how to interact with these symbols, these gods, these beings, safely or as safely as possible, so that you understand what we are undertaking here and the accompanying risks. What is most important right now is learning the symbols. There's only 22 of them. As I say to my students, if you can follow a show like Game of Thrones or The Wire that has multiple complex characters and storylines, then you have the brain power to understand astrology also. Once you learn those symbols, then you can do the very important work with them, which is combining them. This is represented by the old alchemical adage, solve et coagula, which means roughly dissolve and coagulate, or take apart and put back together. Once we learn the symbols, we're going to learn how to combine them and take them apart again and recombine them again. Why combine them? Well, that's what astrology does. It combines these symbols. The major arcana are finite in number at only 22, but the way that they are able to be combined is infinite or close to it. We know with these symbols that we have the building blocks to magic and to understanding reality itself. It's like having the periodic table all laid out for you, and now you get to practice chemistry. The periodic table is the major arcana. The possibilities of combining these symbols again is infinite. Like I said before, the symbols themselves are the planets, the signs of the zodiac, and some basic forces involved in astrology. These are both concepts we keep inside our heads, and we see them outside in the literal world, up in the sky. Which reminds me of an old important concept passed down to us by the magicians and hermeticists of old. As above, so below. As above, so below is a major key to our understanding. It sounds simple enough. What happens up there in the zodiac, in the sky, mirrors what happens here on Earth. As above, so below is a thought I want you to have in your head, because we'll find ourselves returning to it again and again. And each time we do return to it, you'll find that your understanding and appreciation of it is greater and greater. Now let's take a trip up out of Earth and her atmosphere and high into the sky. If we were high enough, looking down, what would we see? We would see the whole solar system laid out beneath us, with the sun being the giant ball of fire at the center, and the planets like beads rotating around it. These are the same planets we're talking about symbolically. You know from science class that these planets all orbit the sun, and it will not seem so unfamiliar or so odd an idea that the planets also all move at their own individual rates. Mercury, the planet closest to the sun, moves the fastest, making its trip around the sun in 88 Earth days. The further out in the solar system you go, generally speaking, the further out you are, the more slowly the planets move. Earth takes more than 4 times as long as Mercury to orbit the sun. Jupiter takes 11 Earth years to orbit the sun. By the time you get to Pluto, still a planet for astrologers, still counts, it takes almost 250 Earth years for Pluto to make one trip around the sun. And there are lots of solar system bodies that you've probably never even heard of, like Sedna, which is a tad smaller than Pluto and takes more than 10,000 years to orbit the sun. Because these planets all move at different rates, you never see the same solar system twice. Because of this, the solar system is actually a great randomizer. The snapshot of the solar system on the day you were born is utterly unique and will never be repeated for the life of the whole solar system. That's what makes your birth chart as unique as you are, as unique as your fingerprints or your DNA, but more special because it connects your birth to the whole universe. If you understand the planets and the zodiac signs they travel in to be symbols laden with meaning, then the unique snapshot of them that is your birth chart becomes an essential document for you to decode to understand the meaning of your own life. And how do you decode it? You decode it by combining the symbols and understanding what they mean. That is enough for the first lesson of astrology.